Hey guys, Chris here for Thoman's Guitars and Basses. In today's Guitar Tech Tips, I will talk to Mike Hickey, the legendary guitar player in bands such as Venom, Kronos, etc., and Joe Bonamassa's Guitar Tech. We'll talk about Joe's preferences in terms of guitar setup, strings, pickup height, and all that. We'll talk about bursts and a lot more actually. This is gonna be awesome. This is a special moment for me. I love, first of all, I love what you're doing. I've been following your work for many years, and I don't even know when it was when I first saw you as Joe Bonamassa's, in case anyone is wondering, Guitar Tech. That must have been like at least 5 years ago, probably longer. How long is your working relation with Joe?
I think it started in 2012, maybe. It was about 9 years we worked together on a regular basis, and obviously, if you work with Joe, you're constantly touring, constantly recording, and constantly coming into contact with super cool guitars.
Oh, yes.
So we have mutual friends, one of them being Derek Sherinian, the self-proclaimed greatest rock keyboardist ever. And so Derek and I, we go back to college as friends.
Wow.
So when Joe needed a guy, he called Derek, and Derek says, I know one guy. And then I had met Joe at a jam session in Hollywood for a minute. And I just thought he was easy to deal with. And then I also knew he had bursts, and that's something, as you know, I'm very interested in. And we have another mutual friend, Elliot Michael, at Rumble Seat Music. So I called Elliot, and I'm like, hey, call Joe and give him the lowdown. And he's like, yeah, I'll tell him you owe me money, all that stuff. So we just hit it off really well, especially because of the burst thing. And I have a deep appreciation of vintage instruments. And, and I also like to rip on the guitar. So I like to work with someone who rips, I prefer someone with large amps, high volume, and incredible chops. So I got my wish, and it makes it better. I've worked with other guys who do other styles, and it would always be kind of not that they were bad musicians, but it might be a Taylor acoustic into a direct box, which I don't want anything to do with that. That's kryptonite. So it was a great, perfect timing, perfect storm for us to work together. And with the challenges of the past couple of years of not touring, I had to get involved in other things because we weren't working. Yeah. And I had to move on from the organization, but of course, we remain close friends and stay in contact regularly.
Crazy. How's Joe to work with? Is he on a fellow guitar nerd level when you're talking about this guitar, that guitar?
He's just a regular dude, super chill. He knows the string may break. He knows the amp might blow up.
Okay.
The battery might die. The cable might shit the bed. He knows this stuff because he started, he did everything. He strung his own shit. He drove the van. He set up the PA. He probably ran the mixer on the side of the stage. And he worked his way up to a point where, now he can just walk in and play the guitar. When I started, there were 22 guitars on the tour. And then as we progressed over the years and he got more and more vintage gear, we honed it down to specific instruments for specific sounds. So you probably would recognize there's a rotating burst situation. There'll be 2 or 3. And then at times there'll be a 58V. And then, of course, there's some ES models. And then, of course, there's one beautiful 55 hardtail Strat that they call Bonnie.
Yes.
That guitar, that thing, it's essential. It's been refretted a few times, and it's just the best Strat. And I played hundreds and hundreds. And it's, for me, someone else might play and go, this is rotten. But
Well, I don't think so.
but I think that guitar stands above a lot of the others. Just like with the bursts, there's certain ones that have come through the lineup which have a little more something than others. But they're all cool. I mean, who doesn't want a burst? Yeah. And he plays, his sound is very clean, even though it is distorted. And as you've seen over the years, it's gone from a giant hodgepodge of amps to basic tweed with a wah-wah and a boost. And you think about it too, when these guys are that advanced on the instrument, and they're hypersensitive to small things.
Yes.
Even in this crazy 100 decibel situation, like with Joe's rig, I think it's around 109 decibels behind the plexiglass.
Only? Really? 109?
Average.
I mean,
But-
that's not quiet. Don't get me wrong. That's good loud. I was kind of expecting 120 or something like that. No, seriously.
Well, and then of course he's got wedges up in the front and in front of him. So the guitar's everywhere he goes. And I mean, obviously I played through that rig, all of those rigs every day for years.
Yeah.
What I did learn though is the Tweed Twins are probably the all-around greatest amp, because you can put a box in front of it and get hyper gain going.
Yes.
But you still get that clarity, and that amp is like it's so aggressive. And if you know how to play above a certain level, that amp will allow you to go there.
Yeah.
It will also, I won't name anybody, but I've had metal friends try the rig and they're crippled,
The last show I've seen you guys play was here in Germany a couple of years ago, before the whole pandemic thing happened. And it was the 4 tweed amp era. Like the Dumbles were not back yet. It was just the two, I think the 2 modern and the 2 vintage ones together.
Okay, sure.
I guess it was that period. And I was like, okay, I'm really looking forward to hearing these amps. It was like a big hall, obviously, and not open air. And this was the first concert in my life that I've heard this way. I was not sitting like in the first row or whatever. It was like medium, midfield, somewhere in the middle of the room. And I've heard his guitar from the stage as much as from the line arrays, like the PA system. And the band was pretty much only coming from the PA. And it was such a ridiculous, 3-dimensional, crazy tone that I literally had goosebumps just because of that experience of I can actually hear his amps on that stage that's like 100 meters away from me. And that was just unbelievable. I mean, obviously the whole band was mind-blowing, but that tone, that experience that I've never had before was enough to prove to me that there's a good reason why Joe decides to go for his rigs, because everyone was like so surprised, like, oh, no Dumbles, okay, no Marshall, what? Are you sure? It's like, oh, it was perfect.
And that period is, we're rolling with 4 twins, and the signal path, it was to, the wah-wah into the it ended up being a Klon later, but it would have been the double land special.
Yeah, they were huge.
With the 2 settings. So we set one side for Strat, one side for humbucker. And then he added in like it's a blue pedal with like a way huge blue hippo.
Yeah.
And so then that goes back and went to a TC chorus, which was always on, very, very little.
True.
And that was the splitter, which then went to 2 Lele orange P-splits. And those are magic boxes.
Yes.
Because you got your phase, you've got your ground lift. And then it went out to the twins, and that was it. Like, there's no trick other than being able to play well.
I've seen a pretty awesome guitar in front of you. What is that?
This
what is
guitar,
that thing?
I borrowed this from Joe last year, and I'm currently not answering his calls, or if a strange car comes in the driveway, I'm like, the lights go out. But
Duck.
this is a 56 Les Paul that was converted in the 70s.
Wow.
By a store called Strings and Things in Memphis. And you'll know of them because Jeff Beck's Oxblood Les Paul was done there. And also his stripped burst. They're the people who added the flower pot inlay on the headstock and put the binding and the little JB, and then he was all upset. But they converted this, and so it already had a tune-o-matic. It's not reset. They just stripped it, and they found all this beautiful flame. I don't know if we can see how much flame because of the weird lighting I have, but
no, you can.
It's super flamed, but the seam is here.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like common on a gold top. So these are real PAFs, and I think they're out of like a 355 or something. They have gold pole pieces.
Yeah.
Last year, over a couple of wines, I was like, "Hey man, what are you doing with that guitar?" And he's like, "Oh, just take it." And I'm like, "Oh, we'll work something out." And it's like, he's got enough guitars. I mean, I don't need this guitar. I have Les Pauls over here. But it's as close to a burst as I can have in my possession without borrowing a burst. And and if he needs it back, he can have it back anytime, because it's not like I don't have any shows to play or anything.
Sure.
I'm just here recording and doing stuff like anybody else who's been pandemicized.
Pandemicized. Yeah.
So to get into the stringing of a Les Paul, everyone knows that I like to put ball ends.
There you go.
Right? And I was cutting them off for years. And then one day a bag of ball ends show up from Ernie Ball.
Oh, that's sweet.
Because Joe's assistant was like, "Hey man, I got your present." So all I do is I thread it on just like a needle. All right? And it comes all the way down.
Okay.
And it ends up, it's hard to see, but it ends up just there.
Okay.
So then, of course, we're top wrapping all these things, right?
Okay, so that's the reason for the ball ends, right?
Yes, and this is something I came up with in the 90s, which started because I got an old Les Paul and the bridge was caving in. And I top wrapped because Billy Gibbons did it, and I thought it looked really cool.
It's cool, yeah.
And then I started breaking strings on the back side here, where you bend this.
Yeah.
And what I realized is when you put the string through, the winding part where it's double wound at the end, you would think that's the strongest area. But when you bend it, it's a weak area as opposed to just the string itself.
Yeah, it's not flexible. Yeah, and you're forcing it to sort of bend. Yeah.
So I came up with this idea. I'll put this ball end on. And so then I feed everything through. And to string the guitar, I always put all 6 strings through because we're in a hurry. Right?
Okay. I'm with you. I'm paying attention. I'm just doing the same thing. I just
do your thing.
Remove the strings, and I have the first ball end on the 6th string already.
So in this case, where we're running 11s, it's a hard ride for most people to use 11s.
Yeah.
And I've gotten used to it over the years, and now I prefer it. My left hand doesn't prefer it because I like a lot of legato hammer-on
It's
activity.
more work. It's more work, right?
Now the right hand loves it because I can pound the hell out of it, and especially with my death metal background, I like a little resistance. And I came from playing tuned to B or C sharp with 12s, 12 through 56, and and I got used to that tension on the right hand and the thickness. So, you know, again, back to the perception of somebody, you get hypersensitive to the tiniest thing, can ruin your show. So the other reason for top wrapping is if you've got your posts all the way down, because you see some guys, they raise the post to make less tension.
Exactly.
In my mind's eye, I still have this visual thing, like I want to see that thing on the deck.
Yeah.
So the other cool thing it does is if you just have them normally through, the strings tend to touch the back of the bridge,
which will not help with the with keeping the strings on the guitar, right? Because that's a point where it could break.
It could break. It can cave in the bridge easier.
Yeah.
You got the studs all the way down to the deck for better sustain in theory, and then the string is just touching the saddle. It's not touching any other part at that point. So you've got this open area for the string to just do what it needs to do. And sustain. And now there'll be guys that'll argue all day with you that that's not the way to do it, and that's cool too. But you can argue all you want, but you'll never be as cool as Billy Gibbons with a top wrap, you know? Now another thing which we were saying before about the ball end, you know, now what we've done is we've moved the string back, right, by that much. And now where we're gonna bend it is not on the seam.
It's
true. On the action.
The thick part of the winding is inside the bridge. It's inside the hole.
Correct. That's true. And also you're not gonna on the unwound strings, you're not gonna have the little piece sticking out and rubbing on your hand.
Or cutting your flesh.
And everybody says, well, how come your hand's back there? Well, you know, I might be doing a windmill or, you know, something cool, you know? So before I put the strings on, I get the Big Ben's nut sauce or whatever you like. Okay.
Got you covered.
Right. So this stuff's great. And I think it works. It might also be placebo. And I just feel like, okay. And all I do with it, they come with this little thing to apply it and everything. I throw that away. I don't put it on the bridge.
Okay.
Because that's metal anyway. This is not going to do anything metal to metal.
Probably not,
You know? So the nut is your only spot. That really, for me. Anyone else can do what they want.
All right.
In fact, you know, so all I do is I just blast it 6 times across the slots.
Okay, it's just in the slots, like a...
Yep.
Okay.
So it's just a little bit. You got to dab it in there on the higher ones. And then I just wipe it off.
All right.
And it's in there.
Okay.
And let's see. I wonder if I can make this camera join. No, that won't work. Okay. So we'll go to vertical cam for the stringing. So I take the string and I bend it at the tailpiece with my finger. I set it in the slot there, and then I put it through the headstock, line it up, and this is the real trick here.
Okay.
I pull it up to the next tuner.
Okay. So you pull it straight and you put your finger to the next
next tuner. Then I pull it back. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So that 1 inch and a bit distance. And then I bend the string over the top. And then I put a bend in the end of the string.
All right. Okay.
And then I grab my trusty peg winder, and now I'm going to go under the strings, under the string. So we're over the string coming out when we bend it over the top, right?
You bend it clockwise or counterclockwise? Like the first.
This is clockwise.
Okay. So the first is clockwise.
Right? And then you bend the end of the string up straight. And then as I'm coming around, where the string comes out of the peg, I go under it. So it locks it.
Okay.
So it's locked. And I'm also, I don't know if you can see, but my other fingers here.
Keeping the string, yeah.
Keeping the string off the nut.
Yeah.
Because what I don't want to do is run this string through the nut and wear out the slot.
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't until I'm going to go to pitch, I don't touch the string into the nut slot.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, so what you end up with is one over and one under on an old clousson.
Yeah, yeah.
And this does two things. It locks it in without a knot. And you see these guys, they have sailor knots up there and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And the other thing it means is when I've got to restring in a hurry, it comes off fast.
All right. Okay.
So, and also, let's say this guitar is going to be used at a gig. It's probably going to be used for one song.
Okay.
The chances of it going out of tune with fresh strings are pretty slim in about 6 minutes. Unless, you put it on the wrong way. And so then I just get it up there.
Okay.
And make sure it's in the slot. And then I stretch the hell out of it.
You do stretch quite intensely. Okay.
Yeah, like one thing I always try to do for Joe, I try to break the string before it breaks with him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And also what I would do is if I'm prepping a guitar for the next song, I would play licks in that key, and I'm tuning I'm constantly tuning. At the show, I would either use the Polytune pedal.
Okay.
But in the daytime when I'm stringing, I would use the clip-on Polytune, and then I just clip it right at the top of the tuning post.
All right. Okay.
Just straight across, and that's it. And basically, you want it so you don't want it sticking out, and everyone gets poked. Like I'll never catch lockjaw or anything or tetanus. I took the Ernie Ball vaccine all my life. So
you have enough metal in your blood, or whatever.
Yeah, yes, in more ways than one.
Yeah.
And so I don't generally tune it until I've got all 6 strings. I do tune it up, but not to pitch.
Yeah, just to have some tension. Okay.
And so when I get to the D string, obviously I've got no other tuner to measure.
Yeah.
So I just go to I just go to the end of the headstock.
Ah, nice. Okay.
And then put it around and same
okay,
sketch.
now I got you. Okay, I actually did the first string wrong, but now that I've seen you do the A and a D, I'm 100% sure that I got that loop thing. Okay, so I pull it with my finger to the next tuner, then pull the string back, then do the loop with the string, not with the slack, basically.
Yeah.
And do it from the outside to the inside, which is above the rest of the string. And then you do the turns where you put the strings that you wind up underneath. That's how you have the one above.
It comes, right.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. It's actually super simple, and I do it differently, but I do the same thing. Like my first circle, the first round is above the string you will cut off, and the rest goes under. And I try to stick to 2 to max, like 3 turns.
Yep.
That's about enough, and it's...
And obviously the G string, everything's reversed.
Yeah.
So when I get up there, and with the unwound strings, you can have a little longer measurement because they're thinner, of course. And so with the G, I'll go up above the headstock, and again, I'll do it slow. I've made a loop. I kink it over, and again, here's the string is really low, almost touching the grommet in there.
Yeah.
And so you don't want too much extra. I don't fix amps because I don't want to get electrocuted. So, like, if we had an amp blow up, and I know there's guys that do fix them and bless them, But
Yeah.
we have this great invention called FedEx, or we use Yelp, and we find the local amp guy.
Yeah.
And they always lose their mind, you know, when I show up in my Uber.
Yeah.
And I bring them this fucked up Dumble.
It's like, oh yeah, it's Joe's. What? Yeah.
And you know, there's always somebody around that can fix an amp. And obviously, at the level of Joe or any other professional, they're not showing up with one amp.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole spare everything, which can be switched over quickly. You know, of course, in the case of, and I've had it happen many times, in the case of the Twins, there's no option other than to walk out there and muscle the amp out from the back line.
Yeah.
And get pummeled by the volume, and then stick another amp in there. I would just walk out if he was out of tune. I would just walk out with another guitar, and I would plot it for when he was singing and not performing. Or like if Joe broke a string, he would, you know, he'd look over at me, and I'd probably be on my phone looking at guitars. What? You got a problem? What, am I supposed to work? You know? And then I'd just go give him the guitar, but I'd wait until he was going to sing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then the band can carry him, and the change is so fast. One time, I think it was in Germany, actually, and we had used a Firebird for one song specifically, tuned to open D minor. And
Okay.
then we brought that guitar out for a different song. But in my brain, like the Firebird's D minor.
Yeah.
Right? So I set it up, and I'm all like, this thing's so in tune. It's going to sound great tonight.
Oh no.
And I walk out and I hand it over, and he goes,
All wrong.
and in D minor, there's no faking it. Right?
He was expecting
Now,
guitar to be in E standard, right?
He thought it was going to be open G.
Open G. Okay. Wow.
So unbelievably, I had a Bonamassa, you know, the blue thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had that in open G, spare. So he looks at me, I look at him. You know, this seems like it's an hour, but it's literally 4 seconds. Like, So I just grab the guitar because that's the backup.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hand it to him.
Yeah.
And I get back, and I'm like, I put the guitar on the tuner, and you know how the Firebird's raised in the middle? Well, we've got the whammy bar pushed back. So we thought it was on there and slipped off and changed the tuning. And then it all hit me when I plugged into the tuner and saw the notes. And I'm like, oh man. And when I went out for the next song, he goes, what was up with that? I'm like, we'll talk later. And he said, "What did the trem slip or something?" And I'm like, "No, I did.
I
it was me." Yeah, and so then I like really made it a point like to really focus on like I'm going to make sure for these open tunings.
Yeah.
So I'm just tuning to standard pitch, and I get it generally around, you know, the area.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. After you tune, then you stretch again.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
And I did watch the video with Tony Iommi's guy who said he doesn't.
Yeah, he told like he doesn't
string.
want to because he feels like the strings are gonna be dead after it. Like if there's no more slack in it, they just don't sound as fresh and dynamic anymore. I don't know.
Well, I think with Tony's touch, it's very light, and that may work. And he probably uses pretty light strings. Then the next step after I've retuned it again is just to start bending. And really, so that's all that goes on with these. And that thing should be good to go for 3 or 4 songs in, you know, preferably 3 in my world.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I do have another important thing for me is that everyone should know before they go drilling vintage guitars.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me show you something.
Right? What do you got, a 6-pack of Grolsch there?
Yeah, sure. This was from a beer bottle, and this is the Dunlop one that locks in.
Right.
That also works really well. I kind of mix these, whatever I have it, in my hands.
Yeah. So that,
Perfect.
for me, that's the trick.
Yeah.
That ain't going nowhere. I mean, it's not like we're in Cinderella and spinning the guitar. But those are essential. And of course, we made Bonalocks, which were just these that said Bonalock on them. I don't think they were a big seller because I have a lot of bags of them still. But it's funny. I sold a burst a couple years to a well-known guitar player, and the first thing his tech did was put shallers on. And I'm like, this guitar has been fine for 60 years without your help.
Now, what's up with the setup? Because I honestly cannot even think about, guess how meticulous Joe is with his setups. Is he like, whatever,
This is higher than most people.
Okay.
But it's not, I mean, I might have.
Have you ever measured anything with Joe?
Well, look, this will crack you up. Dan Earlywine, right?
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
Okay, so
Legend.
About 4 years ago, he gave me this string action gauge.
Oh, it's still in the plastic bag. So you literally never measure these things with Joe, right? So this is the same, still not unboxed measuring gauge you got from Dan years ago.
Yeah, it looks to be 0.80, 80 thousandths.
Okay, so inches, right? 0.80.
Yeah.
And what's up with the first string? I'm at 0.60.
I'm at 90.
Okay, wow. So the first string is higher than what you would call like a comfortable low action. Okay.
Right, and that's so you can bend.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Okay. Let me.
And the pickup, it looks to be about 110.
Okay.
And then down here is about the same.
Yeah. That's 110, and for the next pickup as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the old guitars, because they had covers, so this is going to look low.
Yeah.
It would have had the cover.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And quite often during a show, Joe would adjust.
Oh.
So you might want it down or up.
Yeah.
You can do about quarter of a turn.
But that's pretty standard for PAFs, right? That kind of height, what you have on the guitar.
Yeah, they can only go so far.
Yeah, like if you get closer, you gotta hit it with the string, I guess, at one point.
Yeah, and on this guitar, there's wear on the ring.
Yeah. By the way, is there any other difference between like the 58s, 59s, or the 60s? Because Joe prefers the 60s. Is that just the neck that is thinner, or is it the voicing, like an overall general tone difference?
There's the neck pitch is slightly more on a late 60.
Okay.
And also your tenon is short.
Yeah, yeah.
So with the higher bridge for the neck angle, you get more of a trebly bite, snap.
Right. Yeah.
He may like that. I mean, everyone wants a 59. And he never had a 58. got one last year from South Africa, and great guitar, crazy flame, and great story. The early '60s, they have they're basically like a burst, a regular 59, and then when you get to the 7,000s,
which is the later.
That's when the red comes in.
Yeah.
And they change the neck angle. And those are great.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've been really fortunate of probably played 350, 400 bursts.
What?
So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's in 20 years.
Wow.
You know, and I've documented them all. I want to make a book.
You really should.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I just make it simple. You know, just there's the guitar, and away you go.
I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, but it's a good time.
It was great talking to you, and thanks for all the insights and all the stuff that you gathered over the years. And it's precious info, and I will treasure it. And I'm 100% sure that the viewers will do the same thing and appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope they'll enjoy it. You know.
In case you have any questions left, let us know in the comments below. I'll reach out to Mike and try to get those answers for you. You guys take it easy. Don't be afraid of setting up and fixing your guitars yourself. It's time to become your own guitar tech.